The only way I can brace myself up for tonight is to get so mad. Father, usually you see things so easily. Don't you understand? It was my chance, my one moment, my time to strike. It will be years before I get such a hearing again. You see, Father, the thing will be printed, and the men I want to have hear it, the men who own this state, will be there. One of them is to preside, and the story of it, the worth of it to them, is that I'm your son. You see, after all, he seized at this wildly, I'm getting my start on the fact that I'm your son. Go on, said the man. The brown of his wind-beaten face had yielded to a tinge of gray. Just what is it you're going to say? I call it the new America. A lot of this talk about doing things, the glory of industrial America, the true Americans, the men of constructive genius, the patriotism of railroad and factory building, a eulogy of railroad officials and corporation presidents, he rushed on with a laugh, singing the song of capital. Father, can't you see why? The old man had risen. Tell me this, he said. None of it matters much if you just tell me this. You believe these things? You've thought it all out for yourself, and you feel that way? You're honest, aren't you, Fritz? He put that last in a whisper. The boy made no reply. After a minute, the man sank back to his chair. The years seemed coming to him with the minutes. Fred was leaning against the wall. Father, he said at last, I hope you'll let me be a little roundabout. It's only fair to me to let me ramble on a little. I've got to put it all right before you or, you know, Dad, he came back to his place by the table. First thing I remember very clearly is those men, your party managers, coming down to the farm one time and asking you to run for governor. How many times is it you've run for governor, Father? He put the question slowly. 5, said the man heavily. I don't know which time this was, but you didn't want to. You were sorry when you saw them coming. I heard some of the talk. You talked about your farm, what you wanted to do that summer, how you couldn't afford the time or the money. They argued that you owed it to the party. They always got you there. How no other man could hold down majorities as you could. A man like you giving the best years of his life to holding down majorities. They said you were the one man against whom no personal attack could be made. And when there was so much to fight anyway. Oh, I know that speech by heart. They've made great capital of your honesty and your clean life. In fact, they've held that up as a curtain behind which a great many things could go on. You didn't know about them. You were out in front of the curtain, but I haven't lived in this town without finding out that they needed your integrity and your clean record pretty bad. That was out on the side porch. Mother had brought out some buttermilk, and they drank it while they talked. You put up a good fight. Your time was money to you at that time of year. A man shouldn't neglect his farm. But you never yet could hold out against that needing you kind of talk. They knew there was no chance for your election. You knew it. But it takes a man of just your grit to put any snap into a hopeless campaign. Mother cried when you went to drive them back to town. You see, I remember all those things. She told about how hard you would work and how it would do no good, that the state belonged to the other party. She talked about the farm, too, and the addition she'd wanted for the house, and how now she wouldn't have it. Mother felt pretty bad that night. She's gone through a lot of those times. There was a silence. You were away a lot that summer and all fall. You looked pretty well used up when you came home, but you said that you held down majority splendidly. Again there was silence. It was the silences that seemed to be saying the most. You had one term in Congress. That's the only thing you ever had. Then you did so much that they concentrated in your district and saw to it that you never got back. Julius Caesar couldn't have been elected again. He laughed harshly. Father, the boy went on after a pause, you asked me if I were honest. There are two kinds of honesty, the primitive kind, like yours, and then the kind you develop for yourself. Do I believe the things I'm going to say tonight? No, not now. But I'll believe them more after I've heard the applause I'm sure to get. I'll believe them still more after I've had my first case thrown to me by our railroad friends who own this state. More and more after I've said them over in campaigning next fall, and pretty soon I'll be so sure I believe them that I really will believe them, and that, he concluded flippantly, is the new brand of American honesty. Why, any smart man can persuade himself he's not a hypocrite. My God, it wrenched from the man. This, if you'd stolen money, killed a man, but hypocrisy can't, the very thing I fought hardest, hated most. You lived all your life with me to learn this? I lived all my life with you to learn what pays and what doesn't. I lived all my life with you to learn from failure the value of success. I never was sure I was a failure till this hour. Father, can't you see? Oh, don't talk to me, cried the old man, rising, reaching out his fist as though he would strike him. Son of mine sitting there telling me he is fixing up a brand of honesty for himself. The boy grew quieter, and self-restraint left his father. I mean that, just that, he said at last. Let a man either give or get. If he gives, let it be to the real thing. There are two Americas. The America of you dreamers, and then the real America. Yours is an idea quite as much as an ideal. I don't think you have the slightest comprehension of how far apart it is from the real America. The people who dream of it over in Europe are a great deal nearer it than you people who work for it here. Father, the spirit of this country flows in a strong, swift, resistless current. You never got into it at all. Your kind of idealists influence it about as much as red lights burned on the banks of the great river would influence the current of that river. You're not of it. You came here throbbing with the love for America, and with your ideal America, you've fought the real, and you've worked, and you've believed, and you've sacrificed. Father, what's the use? In this state, anyway, it's hopeless. It has been so through your lifetime. It will be through mine. The man sat looking at him. He felt that he should say something, but the words did not come, held back, perhaps, by a sense of their uselessness. It was not so much what Fred said, as it was the look in his eyes as he said it. There was nothing impetuous or youthful about that look, nothing to be laughed at or argued away. He had always felt that Fred had a mind which saw things straight, saw them in their right relations, and at that moment he had no words to plead for what Fred called the America of the dreamers. I'm of the second generation, Dad, the boy went on at length, and the second generation has an ideal of its own, and that ideal is success. It took us these 40 years to